actually don't think you should have a monthly sales goal at all. You're actually probably going to make less money than if you only had an annual goal. Something that you have to understand and accept about business is that you will always have inconsistent income, period, point blank, no exceptions. Hi, business owners. Welcome back to the podcast. I had a very interesting conversation with a client the other day, and it reminded me of something that I have said before, but I feel like it needs to be repeated. So this client came in and she was like, so how do I hit my monthly sales goal if da 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 da? And I was like, whoa, monthly sales goal. Tell me about your monthly sales goal. Why do you have a monthly sales goal? And she goes, well, what do you mean? Like everybody has a monthly sales goal. And she kind of explained her pricing and her stuff. And I replied, I actually don't think you should have a monthly sales goal at all. And she looked at me and she was like, what? Like everyone ever has always said you should have a monthly sales goal. So I wanted to make a podcast episode about this because I didn't realize this was a hot take until I said it. And when I went through it, it made a lot of sense. Now, why am I dedicating a whole episode to this? I'm dedicating an episode to this because if you have daily, weekly, monthly, or even quarterly sales goals and you are actively tracking against it and putting a lot of weight on it, you're actually probably going to make less money than if you only had an annual goal. Overall, you're more likely to make less money. And I have 2 reasons why and what to do instead. So here's what we're going to cover in this episode. Why inconsistent income is never going away. Money as productive procrastination, how you're using your money and your numbers to productively procrastinate, and then what to track instead. All right. So we're going to go over all 3 of these today. And I think that by the end of this, I will have convinced you that monthly sales goals are not necessary and that you can make way more money without them. So let's start with number 1. Inconsistent income is never going away. Gina, why are you saying that? First of all, I've always been saying that. If you've been around for a while, you know how diehard I am about this idea. And it relates to the monthly sales goals because the reality of business, something that you have to understand and accept about business, is that you will always have inconsistent income, period, point blank, no exceptions. There is not a business on earth that has consistent income or linear income. What does that mean? It means every single month, every single week, every single day, you're going to make a different amount of money. And there might be good months and bad months, and it's not going to be linear. One of the biggest mistakes that I see from a mindset perspective is when a client hits a new high cash month and they get all excited, as you should. It's very exciting to hit a high cash month. And then they think that's their new baseline. And then they think they're only going to go up from there, or they think that's the new normal. No, babes, most likely you're going to hit your highest cash month ever, and then you're going to plummet back down to reality. So I say this to say, when I have clients who are very fixated on monthly income goals or weekly income goals, they are only setting themselves up for emotional distress, and that typically correlates with making less and less money. The more you are spiraling, the more you are questioning your decisions, the more you are flip-flopping on your strategy because you're distressed, the less likely it is that you're going to make more money. So I'm really adamant about this because it is a dangerous game to play to have this idea that, you know, I'm going to hit my income goal perfectly, or I'm going to hit it and then go up and I'm never going to go back down. So to illustrate this, I'm going to share my screen. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, come on over to YouTube, come on over to Spotify where you can see the video feed. But I'm going to share my screen, and this is what I share with my clients. So this over here is how much money I have made in my business every single month since I started my company. Literally graphed out onto a graph. So you can see, and you can see the data. It's not very beautifully organized here. You can see the data. The first month of my business, I made $200, and then I made $150, and then I made $600, and then I made $800, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if we look here on the graph, You can see so clearly what I'm trying to say, which is that your income will never be consistent, period, ever. And usually, at least for me, maybe it's not true for you, but usually after you hit a peak high income month, you're going to hit a crash. That's what has always happened for me, at least. There's been a couple times where I've been able to repeat revenue twice or like go up after a peak, but typically I hit a peak. Like here's a peak in September 2023. I hit a peak of $79,300 cash collected. That was my highest cash month to date. And then the following month, I hit 38,000 from almost 80K to 30K, 38K. It cut in half. And that is so normal. That has happened so many times. I hit this peak in November 2025. I hit $121,000 cash month. And then by December, I hit 70,000. For me, a peak is always followed by a crash. And again, that might be unique to my business model. Maybe yours doesn't look like that. But the reason I show this is because I really want you to look at this. And I want you to ask yourself, if I had the expectation that my journey would be linear or that I would never have a crash after I hit a peak, if I have the expectation that if I crash after a peak, that something is wrong, then you now start solving the wrong problems. If I let the crash after the peak spin me out, I'm going to then start solving things that do not need to be solved. I'm going to waste resources. I am going to waste time chasing something that never needed to be chased to begin with. This is why I'm so clear on the fact that monthly goals are not helpful. It is helpful to generally know, okay, if I want to make $1 million this year, it has to average out to about 81,000 a month. But you need to know it's not going to look like 81,000 a month in your $1 million year. I've hit $1 million years and it did not look like that, right? So I just show this to show that this is every business, including successful businesses like mine who are very profitable and nothing is really wrong. It always will look like this. So you've got to get on board with that. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, money as productive procrastination. Typically, when I see people who are really wrapped up in these weekly, monthly sales goals, they are using it as a form of actually avoiding something else. I can always tell. It's like a sixth sense. When I have a client who's like really in their spreadsheets, they're mapping out every scenario. They're doing math left and right. They're keeping track of their weekly numbers. They're looking at them all the time. They're spending a lot of energy looking at or interpreting or projecting forward numbers. Generally speaking, they're avoiding something else. There is something in their business that they do not like or that they do not believe is even solvable. So they're avoiding that by being productive and looking at their numbers. And again, this is all generally speaking, this is what happens. But I've seen it time and time again. And usually for those clients, I go, you're on a timeout, no spreadsheets for 30 days. And they go, what do you mean no spreadsheets for 30 days? And I go, you are too attached to your spreadsheets and you're avoiding something else. And we don't know what that other thing is because you're spending all your time in your spreadsheets. So you need to get out of those spreadsheets. And they do. And they report back and they say it was very uncomfortable and it wasn't fun. And the reason it wasn't fun is because they're finally forced to look at the things in their business that aren't working. And that's typically not fun. But guess what? That typically makes you money. It typically makes you money when you solve problems in your business. And these can be any types of problems, right? It can be like, you know what? I've been avoiding the fact that I have too many people on payroll. I've been avoiding the fact that I really need to let some people go. And I've been avoiding it by trying to sell my way out of it. So that's why I've been hyper-focused on the monthly sales numbers. Or I've been avoiding the fact that I have some pretty bad client reviews and my delivery is not good enough. And I'm worried that that means that I'm not good enough. And so I've been avoiding that altogether by just focusing on the sales numbers instead. Or it can look like I've been avoiding the fact that I really hate marketing and I don't think I'm good at it and I'm not good at closing sales calls or whatever it is. And so instead of like actually admitting to myself that I have a skills deficit, I'm just going to track the numbers and the projections instead. Do you see what I mean? That's what I mean when I say a problem in your business. I mean, there is a skill that you're lacking. There is a customer success or customer satisfaction issue that you're having. There's a team issue. There's a profit issue. There's a time issue. There's some issue that you are avoiding by digging your nose into a spreadsheet. And when you solve that issue, you will make more money. Either you'll make more money or you'll save more money. But you're sticking your nose in the spreadsheet. So do not do that. So those are really the two big reasons why I don't recommend monthly, weekly sales goals. It's because it doesn't actually help you. What does help you is you trusting that the income will be inconsistent and that's fine and it's not a problem. And then solving the things that your business needs you to solve right now. I always say, if you want to make more money, all you have to do is solve more problems faster and better. That's it. You just have to solve more problems faster and better. But monthly sales goals typically keep you out of problem solving mode. So what should I track instead? It's very simple. You should track averages. You should track averages. I look at the last 6 months average because I'm a growth company, meaning my revenue is growing. You saw the spreadsheet, you saw the graph. Generally, even though it's inconsistent, my trajectory is up. And so I look at the last 6 months because the last year sometimes is not indicative of what's kind of happening right now. And I want to know 3 numbers. I want to know average cash in. How much money did I make each month on average? So I'm going to take the total and divide it by 6. So for 6 months, so the total cash collected divided by 6 equals my average. You can also do this by revenue stream if that's helpful for you. So you can say, or I could say, what's my average cash in for Small Business Money School versus what's my average cash in for 7-Figure Wealth, which are my 2 offers. The next thing I want to know is my average cash out. How much did I spend over the last 6 months divided by 6? This should include deductible expenses, owner's draws, and debt payments. All right. This is not a true, profit and loss statement in terms of like the accounting terminology, but this is what I want you to know. I want you to know, okay, on average, my business brings in $10,000 a month. It's not going to be a pretty round number. It's going to be a messy number. And on average, my business spends $7,000 a month across my deductible expenses, my owner's draws, and my debt payments. And then the third number I want to know is my average left over. After I pay all the bills and me and my debt payments, what is left in the business? This is a very, very important number because if this number is negative, we have to look at your expenses first, not your income first. Why? Because you should be making money off every single expense that you're spending money on. And if you're not, that means you're spending money on the wrong things. This is also really important because it helps us know, are we overpaying ourselves or are we underpaying ourselves, right? So I want you to know these 3 numbers off the top of your head. Instead of this week I made $698, I want you to know over the last 6 months on average, I make X amount of money per month, because these averages is what evens out that graph that I showed you. And the averages also tells me the current health of my business, not the fantasy version of my business. A lot of times we're making decisions, especially spending and investing decisions in our business, based off of a high cash month and the fantasy that that will just continue forever. No. You need to make spending decisions based off of the last 6-month average, not the projected future 6-month average, because the projected future has not happened yet. And this is where a lot of business owners get caught spending future money and then being caught, always paying for the past instead of spending past money. Okay. So no more monthly sales goals, no more quarterly sales goals, definitely not weekly sales goals. You should definitely have an annual sales goal that you're working towards, but we shouldn't be worried about any given week, month, or quarter because it will be up and down. All right. Okay. I hope this was helpful. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.